Conversations with Wandy.
Thank you very much for joining. I'm very excited to have you here. My name is Wandy Maureen. So it is important that you are a strategic positioner. What is the winning formula that you have? I've always said this and people take it lightly. I want to apologize on behalf of my colleagues.
Conversations with Wandy.
Thank you very much for joining. I'm very excited to have you here. My name is Wandy Maureen. Everybody that knows me calls me Wandy. I do the sessions monthly for purposes of enlightenment on the things that affect us within our workplace. Stick with the learning, share with friends.
Conversations with Wandy.
Today we are going to speak a little bit more on CVs and resumes, what you should know, what you shouldn't know. What you should ignore, and make sure that that CV that you put out to a recruiter is indeed a winning proposition to the team. Josephine will be able to help me coordinate. If you have a question, you can raise your hand if you have the ability to on your platform. If not, you can just type on the chat and Josephine will be able to coordinate the conversations for me so that I can answer all your questions. I also want to just say a big thank you to Josephine, to Mwangi, and to Sam for the work that they are helping us do behind the scenes. And without further ado, allow me to begin the presentation.
Conversations with Wandy.
All right, so welcome again to Conversations with Wandy for those that have just joined. Today we're going to be discussing what it takes to have a CV that will be winning, and which myths that you have heard that you need to immediately discard, and which myths that you have heard perhaps that are actually true. I hope for this to be a very interactive session, so we have a very short presentation with quite an expectations for as many questions as possible for us to be able to help you to write a winning CV. At the end of this presentation, you will receive via email your copy of the presentation in itself and some resource materials in the form of a standard template for a CV, and it shall show you exactly what you need to fill in each and every of the sections of the CV. So if you haven't shared your email with us, please chat on the chat, drop your email so that you can be able to receive these materials. So welcome, and I will start with a fun fact. Most people do not know that the name curriculum vitae is actually a Latin word that means the course of one's life. So when you begin with that understanding, you will then appreciate that there is a huge difference. As much as it is subtle, it is huge between a curriculum vitae and your resume. Your curriculum vitae expresses to the people that you're with what you've been doing in the course of your life. It can include your hobbies, it can include if you've had teaching experiences, writings, publications, and it can be as long as it takes. Unlike a resume that is very focused and concise, and it is an appreciation of your professional life. The one thing that is common about curriculum vitae is that they are used mainly within the education sector. For most people who are applying for lectureship, to run a ministry for education, they are trying to get tenure or promoted within their universities, you will see that they write their CVs. I remember there was a debacle in Kenya sometime when this professor sent out his CV that was around 30 or 32 pages, and very many people were taken aback by that fact. The one thing that I'd like to tell you is that yes, he was right. A CV can be as long as a person wants it to be, and it can contain everything that that person wants it to contain. Now, when you come to your resume, like I said, a resume is used mainly for the purpose of introducing yourself to a potential employer. That is what the job seeking process is. When you are introducing yourself to a potential employer, you have a marketing pitch that you send to them. And that marketing pitch is what we call your resume. It is a very brief, very concise, and to the point summary of your professional life's achievements and the skills that you have within that particular course that you want to expound to the potential recruiter. So the biggest difference between the CV and the resume is in length, content, and use. But then as things have been evolving from the times when we used to write CVs with a pen and you would have to write it with your PO box on the side, there is a lot of things that have changed and technology has come into place where things have now started becoming murky between the line of your CV and your resume. So what has happened is that the market has dictated for us to have what we call a hybrid CV. So this is where you have both elements of a CV and elements of a resume within the same document. So what the biggest difference that comes with this hybrid is that other than having your experiences, your qualifications, and your achievements mentioned, you can actually include the honors that you have, the professional affiliations that you have, the publications that you have made, and a list of references should you require. So I hope as of now we have seen how the course of one's life has evolved and become a resume. So those are the big differences between a resume and a curriculum vitae. What I shall be focusing on in this presentation is your hybrid resume and curriculum vitae. So we shall call it, for purposes of understanding and ease, CV, but please note that I am referring to the hybrid document.
Conversations with Wandy.
So now, what exactly do you do when you are pitching yourself to an employer? Imagine that you want to sell a pen to a person that is walking on the streets. And in that line, in that street that you are, there is a line of other 30 people selling a pen. And this person is walking by because they are having other things that they want to do. They will walk by, but somebody needs to attract them so that they can be able to stop, look at their pen, and decide whether or not they are buying. That is why you have heard consistently that recruiters take between 6 to 30 seconds to decide whether or not they are going to read your CV. So the first thing that you should be able to do is to espouse something so powerful that will make that recruiter want to extend that reading after the 30 seconds. The one thing that you need to appreciate is that Kenya currently, the rates of unemployment are extremely high, and this causes the rate through which people apply for organizational jobs, especially those preferred organizations, which are called employers of choice, can be even one position to 10,000 applicants. If a person does not have an applicant tracking system and they are reading this manually, your chances are reduced because even the time that they assign to the CV is closer to the 6 seconds than to the 30 seconds. So what do you do to make sure that you have captured the interest of this particular employer? Remember, CV/resume is your marketing document. In marketing, and if you're aware of the concepts of marketing, they always talk about the 5 P's of marketing. It's very common in marketing because that is what makes sure that you have been put in the right place, speaking to the right audience, giving them the right product, and making sure that this product is promoted as best as possible. That is the marketing principle. Now, using that same logic, come in and think about your resume as a marketing tool. Now, what do you need to show the employer? You need to be able to show the employer that you're uniquely qualified for the role that they have open. Everything else, believe me, is besides the point. You need to show that you are uniquely qualified for the position that they have on offer. I know many a times people say an employer will skip a potential employee if they have gaps in their CV, etc. But the truth of the matter is, if you espouse properly your unique selling proposition for us, many recruiters will look at your CV. So how do you do that? This is the 5 P's of your hybrid resume.
Conversations with Wandy.
Number 1, position yourself properly. If you're going to stand in that line, and the whole time we're making this presentation, remember the analogy of the line of people with pens. Try to position yourself properly. How can you position yourself properly in the practical sense of the pen example? You might want to maybe position yourself at the very front of the line. You might want to position yourself at the very end of the line, or you might want to position yourself on somewhere a little bit more strategic and say maybe next to a food stand in the line. You know, the way there's a food vendors on the road and then the line is behind them. You might want to position yourself next to the food vendor because you're thinking the persons who are buying pens might also want to eat something. So they will come and stand there, and then you can start a conversation with them for your selling of the pens. So this is your resume. And you're positioning yourself. How do you do that? Tell us who you are. Very clearly, without using jargons, just tell us who you are. Go ahead and speak to us exactly why you think you fit in this organization. And tell me why I should care. That is the bottom line of positioning. And very many people would want to sugarcoat it to you and say, you know, every recruiter is sensitive. We are bringing human back to the human resource management. At the end of the day, a recruit is a very precious acquisition for an organization, because once you join an organization, you become capital of the organization that will actually help to turn the organization's economic purpose or their social purpose. For that reason, we are very particular and cutthroat about how we recruit. So you need to be able to tell us immediately, who are you? Why do you fit in this organization? And why should you care? How do you answer those questions? You say, who am I? Tell us who you are. I'm a professional in, or I have extensive experience in, or you go ahead and say, I am a genuine, just say who you are. Then tell them why you fit in their organization and say, I relate personally to this organization on this ground. Or you can say, I am moved by the mission and the vision of this organization. I respect the mission and the vision of this organization. I am interested in participating in the mission and the vision of this organization. And why should I care? What problem can you solve? And you say, using my extensive skills and experiences, I can be able to immediately bring on board XYZ. I will start reading. Once you have read that, you need to be able to now differentiate yourself. Remember again the line that we are talking about. Many people selling pens, you stood at the correct place. Maybe you're at the beginning of the line, at the end of the line, standing next to the food vendor. What would make that person not just buy food, for instance, from that vendor and go and buy a pen from the next person? How do you differentiate yourself? So sometimes people, if you're doing the actual selling, people would want to dress up properly, be knowledgeable about the product that they are selling. They might want to make other moves of appealing to you by maybe coming directly at you and saying, hi, how are you? I'm selling a pen. So that's how it works for you to be able to brand yourself as a person. Now take that same learning and put it in writing a resume. So what exactly will get your resume noticed from the crowd? And that's why we always insist that you focused on writing an accomplished, focused resume that showcases your brand in action. Very many times they tell you your resume or your CV should be full of action verbs. That cannot be emphasized more. You have to show yourself in action. So stop writing for your roles that you have done. Stop writing your job description. Stop saying I was responsible for. Stop saying all of that. Tell us, what did you do? How have you been in action in the places that you have been working? Once you've been able to get my attention, I have seen that you're different from the crowd. You need to pitch to me. Tell me, what exactly do I need that you have? Pitch to me. Speak to me so that I can be able to understand you. So this is where you're pitching in your CV. Imagine the same analogy that we've spoken about on the line with the people selling pens. You've come and said, hi, how are you? And I have responded, I am well. What next? So that's the part of your CV where you pitch. You need to be able to demonstrate with compelling evidence of your potential to deliver results when the employer hires you. So that's the return on investment of the employer hiring you against the other people. You have to include a very compelling, unique value proposition that you bring to the employer. Here, I'll talk more about it when we are talking about the bloopers in the CV. But the one thing that I always say, avoid making false representations. When you're making false representations in your pitch, it's very transparent. We can see. So don't say, I've been working as a receptionist, and then you say achievements. I managed to be the main holder of the guest registry book. That is probably not true. That is more likely done by your supervisor. So when you're pitching, resist from over pitching. Once you have pitched and you are making sense, and now I'm interested completely, what do you need to do to make your presentation clear? The visual design of your CV, the formatting of your CV, and the overall eye appeal is of paramount importance. One thing that you need to be able to know is that science has proved that the brain processes visuals 60,000 times faster than they process text alone. So be very decisive on this P, because sometimes your CV can be burdening because it's just too wordy. Sometimes your CV can be off-putting because it is just too casual. So you need to be able to make sure that you're understanding this P of presentation. Lastly is your professionalism. I've always said, make your resume error-free. Anything else is unacceptable. People will tell you many things, but anything else is unacceptable. Make sure that your CV is very professionally done. As we are talking more on the bloopers, I'll be able to also let you know some of the things that people do that are very unprofessional and off-putting in their presentation of their CVs. So we've understood the 5 Ps of our hybrid CVs.
Conversations with Wandy. Should I send my CV even if I don't match all the requirements?
So Elvis, thank you very much for your question. The one thing about sending CVs is you are actually aiming to get a job. The process of applying for jobs can be quite emotionally draining. And this here, I'm using my expertise as an empathetic human, as an empathetic recruiter, and as an empathetic job seeker. You are doing yourself more harm when you're applying for jobs that you know very well you're going to receive a notification that says you're not qualified. We found other people that meet closely the requirements, etc. For me, I would prefer read the job description, look at your qualification. If you match at least 75% of those requirements, you can try your shot in the dark. But if it is anything below 75, I say save yourself the heartache. Don't do that to yourself, because when you're looking for jobs, you need to also be in a proper frame of mind for you to continue soldiering on. So give yourself the best opportunity to succeed. So 75% and above, apply. Below 75, look for other jobs that suit better what you can give to them.
Conversations with Wandy.
Thank you very much for that question. And as now we are continuing, once we've understood the whole concept of what your hybrid resume is, what exactly should you have in a resume? Resumes have become very creative recently. There are very many things that have started being introduced into resumes. We are having a lot of resumes that have a lot of infographics. We are having a lot of resumes that have a lot of data analysis. We are also sometimes having resumes that have imageries, etc. I'm not saying that you shouldn't use any of those things. What I'm saying is the following things must be included in your resume. Whatever it is that you have in it, you have to ensure that you have included the following things. Number 1, your contact information. Make it short, make it simple, make it easy for me to know how to reach you. So just write your name, Wandera Karingi, PO Box, blah, 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 if you need it. Email address, blah, 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 telephone, that. Desist from giving 6 alternatives of email addresses, 3 telephone numbers, writing your name, and then there's other people who write their name and say AKA. Just be concise to the point so that I can see I'm speaking with Wandera. Then what next? What exactly is your objective? If the objective, I always advise the younger CVs to do. So the younger CVs are the CVs between 0 years of experience to 3 years of experience. You need to write an objective as the beginning of your resume. What does an objective have? It just shows what you desire to do as you enter into an organization. The mid CVs, those are the CVs between the 5 years to the 7 year experience. I always advise that you write a career profile. Because at this point, you have done some things in your career that would profile you a little bit differently from that entry-level person. So start with a career profile. The grown CVs, those ones are the ones that are the past 7 years to as long as possible. You need to have a professional summary. Somebody needs to be able to know exactly what it is that you are made of and why you are senior in the role that you're saying you're senior in. After that, you need to be able to speak to us about your work experience. You need to tell us a little bit about your education, your professional affiliations. Those ones are a must. It is always very good to have, if you've been given any distinctive awards that relate directly to the job that you're applying for. So I know I might break some hearts here, so hold on to your hearts. But awards like I was the secretary of the debate team, if you're past 5 years, don't do it. Because you have to give me something that makes sense. You know, I was the secretary of ISEC. Those ones are the ones that are very common, yeah? Don't do it. Past 5, just you're better off leaving it. But if you have other awards and honors that you have received, you can put it there. For instance, you can say, I was elected chairman of ISPAC Kisumu branch. That's amazing. You can put that in your CV. Then you can go ahead and summarize some of the skills that you have. It's not compulsory. It's good to have. But here, ladies and gentlemen, I always say, try as much as possible to be concise. Go to the job title that you've been given. Do a quick random search on Google and see what are the key skills that are required to perform a job titled XYZ. Pick those skills. Put those skills in your summary. It makes no sense when you give me a list of skills from computer to speaking confidently to, and I'm just wondering, okay, your point being, because that's how the recruiter will see you. But if you use specific skills for a job, you are more likely to attract that recruiter because they are looking for that skill. Let me give you an example. If I'm applying for a role as a HRBP, I could say wrongly, these are my skills. Human resource planning, human recruiting, legal compliance. I can go into learning and development, performance management, culture. All those things are wrong. That's not what a HRBP should have. You should put something like, I am a strategic positioner. I am a change advocate. I am a communication expert. I am, you understand what I mean? Because a HRBP, it means that you as a HR person, you will position yourself to a certain facet of a business or a business as a whole and give them strategic advice on their human resource management. So it is important that you are a strategic positioner. It is important that you are financially savvy, because once I'm looking already for a HRBP, I already know that you know HR. So don't list that for me. Give me the skills that are key to the delivery of this role.
Conversations with Wandy.
Now that we have known what we have in our CVs, we have known how to have a powerful PCV. What is the winning formula that you have? A CV is a very simple document to write. When you complicate it, that's when it gets bad. If you just get straight to the point, your CV will become very easy to read to the recruiter, easy to follow your conversation, and easy to identify how you meet my needs. So when you're writing your CV, you need to be able to answer these 6 questions through your CV. So imagine your CV is a story, or is it a comprehension? Let me take you back to grammar in primary school, high school, and we would read a story. And after we have read a story, they would ask us several questions. And in these questions, you are supposed to respond exactly in summary of what was in the story. Take back that to CV writing and look at your professional life as the story. And when you have this story, answer the 6 questions in your CV for the person that's going to read. Number 1, What skills do you have for this role? It's very important that you say that. So when you're applying for an accounting job and you are not an accountant, just going back to Elvis's question, there is no point of sending that application because I will have moved on already the moment I see that you're not an accountant. So answer the question clearly and concisely. What skills do I bring to the role? What type of person are you? Of late, people are recruiting for fit. What you can see clearly as development has occurred within the recruiting space, the one thing they have said, in fact, recruiting skill is becoming a little secondary to recruiting personalities, because it is believed that if you have the basic foundational educational value, you can be sharpened in skill. But changing and shifting of personalities becomes very different, and it focuses mainly on the who you are and your ability to change and adapt to change within an organization. So speak to the person that you are. You can use statements like, I enjoy engaging with organizations that focus on social development of a community because I am a firm believer in equal opportunity to each and every member in the society. What does that tell me? It tells me that you're a person that has a passion for societal development. You're a person that would be willing to go the extra mile. You can actually also put it this way and say, so you're writing your CV and you say, I have engaged, or I engage with organizations that do XYZ. But remember to go mainly on who you are as a person. Once we know the skills you have for the role, we know who you are as a person, we will ask you, how are your achievements relevant to this job? That's why you hear people telling you consistently, don't list the job description that you had in your CV, because that is not relevant. The fact that, for instance, you are told to assist on other duties as assigned by your line manager has no correlation completely with the job that you're looking for. So look at the job description again, read it. Look at what you have done before. What can you relate with that job description, and how can you articulate it as an achievement? Sometimes learning is an achievement. Sometimes growing from something is an achievement. So desist from those people who have to go and Google achievements of a role and put them in their CV. Now, after you have answered how your achievements are relevant to the job that we have on offer, we would want you to know, what have you learned from your work experience? So for instance, you came in, you're an accountant, you know the basic principle of double entry, and it has worked well for you. When you started actually doing company accounts, what did you learn that was more interesting about that concept? How have you applied it differently to be able to help you reach practical work solutions? This is where we separate the wheat from the chaff, yeah? When you are saying that I know an academic concept, is very different from when you're saying I know an academic concept and I can translate it into a practical work solution. And that is what question number 4 is asking. Then question number 5 is going to say that translation that you have of that academic principle into an actionable work solution. How do you think you can translate that to this job that I have on offer? So I want you to take that and merge it with the job that we currently have on offer. Once you have answered that, you can then tell us how your qualifications or your studies are supporting you in this job offer. As you can see, we have recruited for skill, and the last thing that we are looking for is your academic qualifications within your area of expertise. So again, remember, the winning formula has 6 questions. Answer them as concisely as possible. The materials that we shall give you after this course with the CV template It shall contain this winning formula and further details on how you can be able to answer these questions for whatever role that you're applying for. This will be sent to you via email. So again, if you have not registered your email with us, please just drop your email in the chat.
Conversations with Wandy.
We need to remember some things that we take for granted, especially for the young ones. Do we call them the Saksa Sema generation, or now we have a new generation after that? We understand that this generation is very different from how it is dealt with, how it is approached, and we appreciate the mannerisms through which we should manage that generation. That notwithstanding, we should not use our right to express in a manner that is offensive. So I've always consistently said, remember what is on your social media. People take this for granted, but this is a very serious fact. I can tell you for free, the last research that was done by both Deloitte, Gallup, and I think it was the Batchers Group, they said 9 out of 10 potential employers or recruiter will look you up on social media. You can be rest assured they will look you up. Out of the 10, 93% will not just look on LinkedIn, they will look on Facebook and Twitter. And of those 53% change their minds about the candidate after they have looked at your LinkedIn and Twitter. And the sad part is that 61% of that mind change is to the negative. So what should you do? Number one, express freely. I mean, it's your account. You can do what you want with it. That's fine. But just avoid profane language. Profane language will not give you many marks when we are looking at you. Avoid overly using sexual references. Don't be that person who is tagged on every funny sexual reference group there is. Don't be that guy. Do not discuss drug use and abuse on your profile. Please, that one, just stay away from it completely. And for the love of God, do not talk about any illegal activities on your social media. That will not help you. The second thing is, for those of us who are very strong about our need to express ourselves freely and without any boundaries at all, check your privacy settings. You will be surprised to learn that only 24% of the job seekers have their settings set to private. So meaning I can just literally go into your page and read everything about it. So if you are that person who insists that I want to express myself in this way, that's fine, but make sure that your profile is set to private so that I can only be able to see it when I am your friend or you have given me permission to do so. So again, relook at your social media, what you have there. If it needs to be there, fine. And if it falls within the category of the things I've mentioned in number one, put your settings to private.
Conversations with Wandy.
Now we have come to the interesting part where we are now going to have a very good discussion on writing our CVs. What are the biggest bloopers that we have seen? I'll just go quickly through the 7 and open it up for discussion. Number 1, spelling errors. I think you saw the ones that we've been sharing on our handles. These are actually coming from actual CVs. These are not fake things. People have written that. I'm very surprised by the number of people who have their title of their CV as curriculum vitae. It's quite a number of people. So you see, the first thing I'm reading, I'm like, what is this? So please, spell check. The good thing about the documentations that we use to write CVs, Microsoft Word and other processes within the Mac groups, you have been aided with spell check. Use it. Use it as much as possible. Even if you're like super good at writing and you're super careful, your attention to detail is amazing, spell check anyway. The second thing is false representations. And ladies and gentlemen, here is where I know that your CV was not authored by you at all. You look at what somebody has done in their lives. I do some search for you on social media and I look at your CV and how it's been presented and I know immediately that's not you. It's very off-putting. One of the things that recruiters have actually been complaining about recently is the fact that the art of CV writing has extended its boundaries, where people are no longer just taking their actual CVs to an expert to position and pitch it properly. People are going to an expert and say, write me a CV. So the expert authors the CV from the beginning to the end. This person doesn't even know what is in that CV. So you find that you have invited that person for an interview because the CV has pitched very well for the role that you have. They come in and you're sitting in an interview and everybody's looking at each other like, where is this applicant that we called? So try as much as possible to represent yourself properly in applications. Now, if you're not looking for a job in the academic sector, please don't make your CV more than 3 pages. 3 pages is great. 2 pages, the best. It doesn't have to be 1 page. 2 pages, the best. 3 pages, fine. 4 pages to 5, it's frowned upon. However, if you're going to do a 5-page CV, make sure that what is on page 4 and 5 counts. I want to read what is in there, as in I'm dying to see what's next. If not, keep it short. Now, some of us have really poor layouts in CVs. It's jumbled up, haphazard. And this comes from especially downloading CV templates from the different sources that you have. So you download a template. Maybe the template is not compatible with your Microsoft Word, for instance. So you've written your CV from that template. You download it and save it on Microsoft Word. What you don't notice is that sometimes it distorts your format completely. So the format you saw online is not the format that will be going to the recruiter once you save the CV. So look out through and make sure that your layout makes sense. Avoid jargons and cliches. Stop saying I have attention to detail. Just show me that you have attention to detail. Stop saying I am a thought leader. Tell me the thoughts you've had in leadership. Stop saying, those big things. Bottom line, top line revenue, low hanging fruits. Those things are just cliches. Stop it. I like to say that very directly. Stop it. And with the people for the jargons, please note that 9 out of 10, the person that is going to be recruiting for a role is not an expert in that role. So when you're applying for an accounting role and all you have is accounting jargon, 9 out of 10, I won't understand you anyway. So please, jargons, cliches, stop it. Lack of evidence of skill. Sometimes we write a CV that looks something like this. Contact information, I've put educational experience, I've put work experience, I say assistant accountant at this from this day to this day. Let's say accountant at this from this day to this day. References, and you're done. That won't take you anywhere. Don't do that. The other thing is unconventional fonts. Sometimes we write CVs in this heavily italic fonts that becomes quite difficult for anybody to read. And there are quite a number of unconventional fonts that people use. Look at the borders that you're putting on your CV. Stop with the borders that are glitters, the borders that are broken into zigzags. Stop with all of those. And for the love of God, do not put emojis in your CVs. I know sometimes you would be wondering, what? An emoji? If there are recruiters in this session right now, they will tell you that we see emojis, quite a number of them. A CV is a professional document. Do not use emojis in it. And this one is going mainly to the people who are in the creative arts. There is a way that you can be creative without being casual. So that's the line that you need to be able to not cross. Be creative, but not casual.
Q&A segment with Wandy. Given that we are in different industries, job sectors, which is the best way to document your portfolio, your experiences in your work life?
There is very many ways you can do it. Some people use hyperlinks. Some people can create a sites where they have their documents stored and their portfolio stored. You can be creative in how you're putting your hyperlink. You can put it as open here. See this. There's quite a number of creative ways that you can actually attach a portfolio, if I'm getting you right, to your presentation. However, the key thing is that you have to have followed the 6 questions that I asked you in presenting the content. Ensure that your content respects the 6 questions that I had asked. Then your design should flow in a way that is attractive but not casual. The thing is to just balance between attractive and casual. I always advise people to try as much as possible save their CVs in either MS Word or save it with PDF. Look also to the recruiter that you're sending your CV to. There are some who are explicit in how you should save your CV. There are some who say, send us a Word CV. Please send a Word CV. There are some who say, send us a PDF. Please send a PDF. When you're applying for a job also, the other thing that you should note is see how that person is recruiting. You can tell very well by the recruiting questions that they ask you. So there are those that will say, send your CV to this email address. There you can send a PDF or a Word. That's very easy. But they say, click this link to apply. So you click on this link and they say, attach your CV. Then you attach your CV. Then they tell you to answer X, Y, Z questions and you leave it. What you need to do before you send your application is to preview how their application tracking system has picked the details in your CV. Sometimes the application tracking systems tend to distort your information so that the reader at the back is not able to read what it is that you are trying to say. So maybe, for instance, it can pick on the part of your contacts, it has picked references. On the part of your experience, maybe it's put your profile summary. So somebody is not able to see exactly what it means. Or the way you have dated your experience. So let's say you've done October 2020 to October 2021, and yet their system counts time by day, month, year. So you need to be able to preview to make sure that what you have uploaded has actually been received properly with the applicant tracking system. And ladies and gentlemen, I know it's hard work, but generally when you're using an applicant tracking system, don't take the option of upload CV to prefill. Just prefill it yourself. That's the safest way to actually do it. Prefill it yourself so that you are sure that you have responded accurately to the different lines that the applicant tracking system shall use to analyze information from your presentation. Thank you very much for that question.
How should one go about long employment gaps between jobs and their CV?
That has been a question that has been with a lot of debate currently. Thank you, Elvis, again for that question. You notice that long is relative. There's those people who've been having a career break of, let's say, 5 years and below. That's not considered extremely long. But then there's those people who have 10 years and above. The 10 years and above, I'm just going to speak about them in a few minutes. But the ones that are below, you can actually be honest and say what you're doing. Like, can say from November 2015 to November 2010, I attended school, was on sabbatical. I decided to take time off work. I was unemployed. Just say what you are doing, but be honest. Don't over-explain. There is people who have this ability to over-explain everything. So instead of just saying was on sabbatical, I took time to travel to Europe and see the culture and appreciate the food. No, don't do that. Just say I was on sabbatical or I traveled the world. If you are having difficulties in getting employment, you can put that gap and say I was job seeking. In the explanation, you can easily say while job seeking, however, I acquired skills through training in this. I got short courses on XYZ. I was able to do 1 or 2 things in a personal base that can relate to this job. Especially for the long gaps. Say yes, I was job seeking, but tell us something valuable about that experience that you have had. Thank you, Elvis.
Can you use different fonts on the same resume?
Absolutely not. Pick a font, stick to it. You can change the font size, you can bold it, you can put it in italics, whatever, but the font has to be the same. This is because, as I had said earlier, your brain processes visual images 60,000 times faster than words. Even when I'm looking at words and I see a certain font, I become accustomed to it. The moment I start to see another font, you're distorting my flow of process. So I'd be looking and wondering, am I looking at the same document? Is this the same person? I'm going to go back again and check. And remember, I have 30 seconds. So 9 out of 10, I'll just go to the next one. So if it is in the same CV, same font, choose a font that you will stick to the end. But it is allowed for you to have it in larger sizes, bold it, italics, underline, etc.
What would one say to those who have written their CVs right, but they receive over and over again the apology responses?
That is actually a very common thing. You might have written your CV exactly to the precision that it requires, but then you keep noticing that you are receiving a decline. Two things. Are those people using an application tracking system? If they are using an application tracking system, you need to go to the thing we call keywords. What are the keywords that the application tracking system is picking? Sometimes you will notice that your CV is actually not being read because there is no responsive word that responds to the words that the applicant tracking system is using. How do you know the words that the applicant tracking system is using? You can just do on your Word document, you can actually see which words have been repeated how many times in the job description. If a word has been repeated more than 10 times, that's a keyword. Include that word at least thrice in your CV. This is a very important information for people to have. Make sure that you're able to pick out the keywords. The keywords are in the job description or the job advertisements. How you know them is when you analyze the words in that particular application, you will be able to see words that have been repeated more than 10 times. If you find that word, make sure that you include that word in your presentation of your CV at least 3 times. This means that the applicant tracking system will not lose you. If you're not using an applicant tracking system, 9 out of 10, reconsider how you're espousing your achievements for that role, because they could not be relating with how you're espousing your achievements to those roles. Look and see, maybe you are over-exaggerating what it is that you have done. Or maybe you're using too much jargon, you're being too all over the place with your points. In the sense that for instance, you say, I was party to a team that saw the company improve revenue for the year 2020. Sounds nice, no? But I don't know what you did. You haven't told me anything. Were you just sitting by the corner staring at the other people doing the work? Were you the guy who did the work? Were you the guy who brought the tea while people were doing the work? I mean, tell me, what did you do? So look at the precision with which you write your achievements. They have to translate and relate at least 60% to what the job is requiring. Thank you very much for that question.
How many referees should be standard on a CV?
Standard referees are 3. For the 3 references, we look for the following things. Number 1, we look for a person that can do a character reference for you. We look for a person that can do a professional reference for you. And we look for a moderator in between. A person who knew you maybe before you became senior or during the time you became senior. So the first thing you should remember is that one of your referees is good to be your previous supervisor. I know this is challenging, especially when you have had a professional disagreement with your previous supervisor. I advise people to always say that out loud. Don't lie. I've seen people who put a hyperlink to a referee that goes to another person who is not that person that you have mentioned there. You're better off saying, I would like to expound further on my previous employer. So make sure that you have good relationships with your supervisors. In the event that you don't, you can use other people in your peer level in the organization. Like for instance, if you're a communication manager, you can actually use a marketing manager as a referee. If your immediate supervisor, who could be the communication director, you didn't go well with them. Look for a person who can give you a good character reference. And ladies and gentlemen, here I don't mean your parents, your priest. No. I mean a person who knows you well throughout the different courses of your career. Like for instance, if I write my CV, I would want to put Josephine in it because Josephine, we have done things together. She has seen me do 1 or 2 projects and I've been able to deliver, so she can have some voice when she is critiquing or giving an opinion on my professional capabilities. And then that person that is in the middle, I always call that person the happy sweet spot person. You know, that person who will always say nice things about you, irrespective of what is being said. Put that one. We also want to know that you're generally liked by other people. So 3 is good. However, for academic CVs, they normally request for more than 3. So just follow what the advertisement has said if you are applying in academia.
At what point do we know in our careers that it's time to move on to the next job? And are there greener pastures on the other end?
Remember, ladies and gentlemen, the world is not as soft as everybody wants to put it. We have to appreciate that grass is greener where you water it. But sometimes where you're watering can get very muddy that the grass is no longer appealing. So how do you know that you have reached your end in a job? So those are issues of job satisfaction. I can give you round about 3 things that can help you to remember that. Number 1, every time you wake up and you want to go to work, you just would prefer for somebody to run you over with a car. You have reached your end. If you're going to work and there is nothing of importance that you're doing, you have reached your end. If you're going to work and you notice that you are not included in any meetings, any decision-making activities, you are not asked any questions, you're not feeling like you contributed in any way, you have reached your end. If you go to work and you are those people who are on Facebook for 5 hours of the 8-hour day, you have reached your end. And when you're applying for jobs, especially when you are looking, I've always said, look at your financial situation first. Are you ready to quit a job? If the answer is no, stick it out as you're looking until the next opportunity comes. The next opportunity at some point will come, so do not lose faith.
Q&A segment with Wandy.
My question is a bit different. I would like to know, for example, if one is in a real estate industry and you want to cross over to another industry, totally different industry. I am aware that in a recruiting sector, you almost look for a candidate that almost came from the same background that would fit in a position. Now, if you want to cross now to a totally different sector from where you are, what are these that you would put in your CV so that you can pop out?
The first thing I'll ask Beatrice for a clarification on that question. Are you changing careers or you're just changing...
You're changing the industry.
The industry. All right. So if that is the case, you shouldn't have a problem in applying if you have written your CV correctly. Because 9 out of 10, the previous experience from the direct industry that you're looking for is not one of the highest considered points of selection. It's actually more on how your achievement, how your educational background has been translated into practical work solutions that we look into as we are hiring. So the thing that you need to be able to espouse larger is what it is that you have done in your organization that is versatile. So for instance, if you're the real estate agents and you want to become a customer care service person, speak to what is customer care. Stop putting in your CV everything that you did that is just on real estate, that I was able to manage clients, meetings, etc., etc. No, speak about my client retention level is 89%. Meaning the moment I get a client, I've never lost them. It's the same principle that occurs in all of the jobs. It also helps if you do research on what are the key skills of every particular job that you're applying for, and make sure that the articulation that you have is responding to those key skills. A simple Google search will help you to know that. If the Google search doesn't, check the job description and see if they have told you which competencies they are looking for, and then respond to those ones.
What's your take on recruiters requiring candidates to fill in their applications through the requirement portal and still have to do a CV and cover letter?
I want to apologize on behalf of my colleagues. I know that can be very disheartening as you're making your whole application. First, they tell you, put your LinkedIn profile, you put in, and then it auto-generates. Then the next page, they ask you to do the process all over again. And then at the end, they ask you to attach your CV. Then at the end, they ask you to attach your cover letter. Sometimes our application tracking systems are just structured in that way. And I am very, very sorry, and I would ask for patience while you're doing that. It's 9 out of 10, the structure of their applicant tracking system. They have to use a certain way. For instance, there are some applicant tracking systems that have what we call an application form. And those application forms, you can find that they cannot be edited for them to get exactly what it is they are looking for. So even if you fill that application form, they will still have to go and read your CV to make sure that they are getting the gist of what they are looking for. So I would request for patience when you meet those things, and just help, like when you're suggesting. You see, at the very end of the application, they always ask you sometimes, how did you find the application process? Put your comments to say, this was long, this was cumbersome. Believe you me, those comments don't go to the recruiter. They go to the techie people who will assist to make the system more user-friendly.
Q&A segment with Wandy.
Anthony Wandy is saying, I guess most of us are at our end. Maybe you can respond to that.
Yes. So I'll take that question as we close the section. The statement is very true. And the first thing that I've always said to people is that you're a human being. And a human being is allowed to have emotions and emotional reactions to different kind of things. Leaving it at just the reaction and saying, I'm just tired, is not helpful. You can be tired, take 2 days to be tired, sit down with yourself, have a conversation with yourself and say, okay, so what am I going to do next? There are some people who can assess and evaluate their positions and say, I can take 6 months off as I'm looking. If you are not those people, do not do that. If you are in the people who cannot take the 6 months off break or the 2 months off break, you start asking yourself, as I am actively looking, what can I be able to do at work currently that can make me more calm? Because you know you are already unhappy, you are unsatisfied. So don't start to look for satisfaction. Just look for calm. Look for inner peace. Like for instance, you can just decide to be very administrative. When you come to work, do what needs to be done and go home. It's called emotional detachment. Detach yourself from the role. This way, the things that are happening at work are not hitting you at a personal level. While you are in that state, put your application processes gear. It's called the fastest gear you can think of. Put it there. This means reach out to recruiters, be aggressive, talk to them, tell them the things that you want, reach out to companies, do cold applications, put yourself out there. Let people know you're out there. Good thing about LinkedIn is of late you can actually put on your I'm open for work. Not the one that put on your logo open to work, especially those people who are afraid that their employers might see that and fire them. There is one that says open to work, but it's only visible to recruiters. Put that one on so that recruiters can see that you're looking. Go to the internet and research. Look at, like, say, identify 6 professional recruitment firms that you can have that are good. Look at their recruitment records and see how many people they have placed. Register your CVs with them. Once you have registered, wait 2 weeks, call them and show interest. Go to jobs, to companies and put your CV in their databases. Look for jobs and make sure that you're looking for jobs that are meeting the requirements at least 80% and apply aggressively. After 2 weeks after you've made the application, you can do a follow-up. But don't apply today and do a follow-up tomorrow. Don't send in your CV today to a recruiter and ask them tomorrow for what they are looking for. But I agree, Josephine, with what you've said. I will take into consideration having our next session on job satisfaction and what to do when you're not satisfied and how to know that, and maybe just around the areas of how to keep yourself satisfied. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the punctuality in time. We still have 5 minutes on the call, but I just want to say thank you very much for the questions and the interactive participation. I have enjoyed, and this has been quite great. This particular recording of the session can be found on all our social media pages. Please like our pages, Conversation with Wandy. Tell your friends to like our pages. We'll be sharing quite a lot of informative information there. We will also send this presentation to you, to your email address. If you haven't got your email address, please share it with us so that we can be able to make sure that we send you this information. On the chat also, Josephine is currently sharing our social media pages. Like, and let's make this learning be available to as many people as we can.
Conversations with Wandy. Join Wandy every once a month as she gets to tackle topics of the job market. Kindly like our pages, Conversations with Wandy, on LinkedIn and Twitter, and get to enjoy a whole lot of material.